besides when football's on my TV every weekend, there's not a time of the year I get more excited about than leading up to the NFL draft.
Yes.
I have 10 people. Now, I did my mock draft probably last week. I think probably last week. If that sounds right. And I have some pretty big picks here based on stuff I've been hearing, stuff I've been listening to. Now, each team has their guy, right? That's the type of person they're going to go for. If they like that type of player and they think they fit well into their offensive or defensive scheme, or maybe they just like the player and want to teach them the scheme that they're not used to, that's the guy they're going to go for, regardless of draft position. Now, sometimes there's a lot of reaches. And I'll give you an example of one last year. We thought Bo Nix was going to be a pretty big reach, and he ended up doing great things for Denver, which the final mock draft, I had him going up high where he actually went. But the first mock draft, I kind of had him going later because I didn't think he was going to be that big a prospect. News comes out, the combine happens, and people's draft stock changes. So keep in mind, this is before the combine. The combine starts February 27th, so we have a while. And if you're watching, anybody watching, if you disagree with these picks, let us know in the comments. Don't simply just dislike the video. Come on now. If you disagree with them, let us know. We can talk about it. We can do a little skip and Shannon with you in the comments. Let us know. Just don't dislike the video because you disagree with who your team's picking. Tell us why they pick a different person. Just don't dislike the video. But let's go 2025 NFL draft, Nate. It's the end of April. It's on a Thursday. I don't know exactly what day it is. But is there anything you'd like to say before we get into the first pick?
Well, one of the things about the draft is always it's exciting. It's exciting because, again, we go through this stretch where the Super Bowl is ended and there is no football. No more college football, no more NFL. So, you go through that little dry phase right there. And then the draft is coming up. The combine is coming up. So you're getting excited. Starting to get excited to see the prospects and just see how they do in the draft. And the excitement starts to build up inside, especially in these facilities and whatnot, these organizations, because you're seeing, guys that literally can possibly help you, make the playoffs or win more games than what you did the year before, or even help you to finally get over that hump and win a Super Bowl. And in some cases, like, prime example, the Philadelphia Eagles, as they added that one player that really pushed them over to achieve the ultimate success. Now, one of the things I'm excited to see, just the process for these young men, the process and the opportunity, because you don't take the opportunity for granted. You have to thrive in the moment. And I've said that on numerous occasions. You do not let the moment be bigger than the opportunity. So again, seeing these guys, and this is a lifelong dream, and again, you're one step closer to achieving a milestone. And it's going to be really important just to see how these guys are out there on the field, see their mechanics, see their speed, and just see them in their natural instinct of playing football. That's one of the things that's really, really, really interesting.
I'm glad you said that, Nate. So, I don't know if you familiarize yourself with the draft order yet. But today, you will know who the first 10 picks are. And so, number 1, we get into the Tennessee Titans. So, I'm going to let you decide, is there anything, but don't try to guess players yet, because I don't want to spoil anything. But is there anything position-wise that comes to your mind, like the Titans are number 1, this is the position they have to get regardless of the player?
Quarterback. They have to get a quarterback. They have a new coach, a new regime. And that's one of the most important aspects of a coach, is that if he doesn't have a proven quarterback, you need that. But one of the things that they could do, they could trade out of that position. And again, they could trade out of that position, trade back and get a couple of, get some draft stock. But I would say quarterback, that's the position that they need. Again, That's the face of your franchise. That's the most important, quote unquote, the most important position on your team. Quarterback.
Now, if you look at the Titans GM, Mike Bergonzi, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He said the Tennessee Titans are going to stay at number one. They're not going to pass on a generational talent. They said they won't. Me and you, Nate, at face value, think the two generational talent players are Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, correct?
Hands down. Hands down. Now, this is not to knock Cam Ward or Shador Sanders, but when we're talking about generational talent for Travis Hunter, again, we have not seen a player of his talent level since, I want to say, Charles Woodson. We could even say Champ Bailey, because Champ, when he was at UGA, he played both sides of the ball.
I
So I
like
mean,
to compare him to like an Aqib Talib at Kansas.
and you know what? And that was one of the names that I'm like, yeah, can we say Akeem Talib? But yes,
I think he really, the both sides of the ball thing, I think he really popularized it because you look at both sides of the ball, you're like, okay, special teams, defensive player, special teams, offensive player. But there wasn't really a guy who did it best in college, in my opinion, than Aqib Talib. But regardless of that, you look at it, you say, okay, well, are they going to pass on a generational talent player? But you just said they have to get a quarterback. This quarterback draft class is so shallow. So you have to get whoever's there. And whoever
yeah.
you think the best quarterback is, you have to take them. And for
But
me, go ahead.
but you don't necessarily have to draft a quarterback there. If there's going to be somebody that you listen to the opportunities and the offers that teams will be calling for that number one overall draft pick. You have to, because that draft capital, you building for the future. Not saying that Shador and Cam aren't good quarterbacks or whatnot, but if you could, you know, build up something like get some crazy draft stock, that might be worth listening to. I mean, just depending.
I would agree with you if this class wasn't so shallow. We don't have a class like we did last year. So it's
Yeah,
very difficult to trade back and still get your guy.
yeah.
So for me, I went to the Senior Bowl. I met RBT, who's a Madden YouTuber, but he's big in football and stuff. He's got well over 1 million subscribers. I talked to him. He's a big Titans fan. I said, who do you want number one? He looked at me. He said, the Tennessee Titans, they're not drafting Abdul Carter. They're not drafting Travis Hunter. At number one, the Tennessee Titans are drafting Cam Ward, quarterback
Ooh,
out of Miami.
not a bad pick.
Let's talk numbers, Nate. You look at the numbers. You say your quarterback play last year was borderline atrocious, if not atrocious. In 12 games last year, Will Levis was 63%. He had 2,091 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Now, let's talk about what Cam Ward did in just about the same amount of games. In 13 games, Cam Ward went 10-3 when Will Levis went 2-10. 67%. He threw for 4,313 yards, which was second in the country. 39 touchdowns, which led the country, and he was a consensus All-American, only throwing 7 picks of those 39 touchdowns. You look at the numbers Will Levis had last year, and you go, okay, who's going to be the guy that does step up on these stats? And I think Cam Ward is your guy, Nate. This is the guy you have to draft. The only issue was with Cam Ward. He's got an attitude problem. And you saw it in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, especially when he sat out that last quarter. He said, I'm done playing. He just sat out. He sat out. And they ended up losing that game by 1 point to Iowa State. So you have a little bit of an attitude issue with Cam Ward. But if you can get past that, I think Cam Ward might be a pretty good prospect. What do you think, Nate?
No, I disagree. I disagree. One of the things I want to take and elaborate on is that, we talk about the NFL game and we talk about the college game. We're comparing the stats, and it's not fair because collegiate defenses are not NFL defenses and whatnot, schematically or whatnot. The talent, it's not. So for us to ding Will Levis on that compared to a Cam Ward who was playing collegiately, and what I think that's not fair. Those stats are going to be miscued in some cases because again we're talking about NFL defense compared to a collegiate defense, NFL offense compared to a collegiate offense. So I want the playing field to be level and even in that manner. Now, as far as his attitude, that plays a big part. I'm not going to sit here and say I wouldn't draft him because his talent is there. His talent, men lie, women lie, numbers don't, and the video and the film doesn't. He's very talented and whatnot. I also like Shador Sanders. I like Shador Sanders. He throws a pre ball. Yet you got to get what's going to fit in your system. A quarterback that's going to fit in your system. So if you feel that Cam is the guy, then that's the guy. I thought they was going to take. I think they're going to take Shador. And if they don't take Shador, I just see them trading out of the number one overall pick. I see a team that's going to be very, very desperate for a quarterback to trade up and give them a fool's ransom for that number one overall pick.
So do you think Shador Sanders is a better quarterback than Cam Ward?
I think he's a better quarterback than Cam Ward. Cam Ward has a lot more upside, but I think Shador is a better quarterback. Just this young man has been training with Brady for how long? I mean,
Just because
he
you train with a good quarterback don't make you a good quarterback.
hey, listen, he's trained with him. He's mentored him. And while you playing, if they don't take Shador, the Las Vegas Raiders, they're gonna try to find a way to get him.
Well, let's talk about that. Nate, let's go to the number 2 spot. So you have the Cleveland Browns at number 2.
Mm-hmm.
In this pick, if the number 1 spot, they go quarterback, this pick's going to be very easy. Myles Garrett is gone from Cleveland. He has requested a trade, and they are going to honor that. They're going to say, okay, well, Myles Garrett, he did what he was supposed to do here. Let's honor him by trading him to a team that'll compete for a Super Bowl. That's what the Browns want him to do. There's no hatred or bad blood between the two. It's mutually agreed, hey, let's put you in a position where you've done everything in your career. So let's put you in a position where you can go and do something else. We had a landing spot segment where he would go not too long ago. And this isn't a difficult pick for me. You got a dude who led the country in 24 tackles for loss. This might be the best player in this draft, if not Travis Hunter. One of the two. You talk about generational talent in the Titans GM. This might be what this guy is. So the Cleveland Browns at number 2, there is no other option for them than to draft Abdul Carter edge at a Penn State. It's the only option.
Hey, absolutely. We're a consensus. We are unanimous. Yes, that's the number 2 pick.
Perfect. Well, we get into a situation where the New York Giants are at number 3. And if you looked at a comment earlier, it said, hey, look, if the Titans don't draft a quarterback and the Giants don't draft a quarterback, you're going to be in some bad doo-doo because the Raiders are going to draft a quarterback. You said Shador is the best quarterback in this draft class, correct?
Yes.
So he's still available. And if the Giants want him.
But there's a big but. I'm talking about we're going to have another Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers situation-esque at the draft where Shador will not go to New York.
I agree. That's why at number 3, the Giants trade back to 6, and the Las Vegas Raiders trade up to 3 to get their guy.
I like how you thinking. How you thinking.
So at number 3, the Las Vegas Raiders select Shador Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. You get a guy like Pete Carroll. Now, he's old. He's the oldest coach in the NFL. That's just how it is. But we've seen him in college and the NFL produce some pretty good quarterbacks
Yes, he
in
did.
his time. Who's to say Shedeur Sanders isn't going to be one of those next guys Pete Carroll can produce?
Ooh. But you also know, you want to know something else? What Pete did with Russell Wilson.
Can he do a Shedeur?
I think he can. I think he can.
Enlighten me.
I think he can because Shedeur has all the intangibles. He has an arm. He's very good in the pocket. I don't know if you guys ever checked his mechanics, but his footwork is just amazing. Uh, you give him a quarterback coach, and give him an offense. Running the ball, protect him, get some weapons around him. He has Brock Bowers there, one of the up and coming stars of the NFL. He can do anything but produce. He's not a guy that, again, he's not going to force it. He's going to take the check down when he needs to check down. He's going to go through his progressions. He's going to, the only problem I think was with Shedeur, his quarterback awareness as far as his pocket presence. That's what needs to get better.
I agree. And when you are Deion Sanders' son, that holds a lot of weight. People don't realize that holds a lot of weight. I mean, Deuce Vaughn, 5'5" running back for the Dallas Cowboys, wasn't going to be drafted as high as he was. But his dad worked for the Cowboys organization. They drafted him like in the 4th round. So Shadeur's going to be a top pick regardless.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to be a top. Like you said, he's trained with the GOAT. He's trained with some of the best around. Shedeur Sanders' ceiling?
His ceiling's high. His ceiling is, you know what? And I think we've talked so much about Cam Ward that Shadeur's ceiling is so high. When he's all about the game of football and focusing, you get him a nice offensive line, you get him the pieces around, I really think that he can thrive and flourish.
Well, Nate, let's go to number 4. The New England Patriots are on the clock. And there is not a single player. And if there's number 4, and it has worked out the way we have said right now, this is going to be another easy pick. There's not a single player that the Patriots need than the next guy on the draft board. And I think you know where I'm going with this.
I'm going Travis Hunter. I'm going Travis Hunter.
Let's go number 4, Travis Hunter. Now, I have wide receiver / quarterback on here because I know my dad asked this just a while ago. What position is he going to play? Now, he got invited to the combine. The position they have Travis Hunter playing is corner. And I think that's a really good start because he's a better cornerback, in my opinion. Now, He did win the Biletnikoff and I can't remember the cornerback award.
He didn't win the Thorpe. He wasn't even which is kind of weird. He wasn't even a finalist for the Thorpe. He won the Chuck Bednarik Award for the Defensive Player of the Year.
That's what he won, yeah. That's what he won, yeah.
Oh, that which is kind of asinine because how is he the Defensive Player of the Year if he's not up for the Thorpe? But I think his money is in the cornerback room. Because of the fact that you look at some of the guys that play receiver, that play corner. I mean, one of the guys I like to highlight, good friend of mine, Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman was a receiver in college all the way up until his senior year, and then he switched to corner, transitioned to corner in the NFL, and he's a lockdown corner. He knows how to break down routes and very, very smart. I feel with his ball skills, I mean, the cornerback position is a great position for Travis Hunter.
So do we find Travis Hunter having more success in the cornerback position than the wide receiver position?
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, the Patriots really need a receiver more so than corner. Now, he's going to be a help regardless of what happens. But if you look at their receiver room, it's not looking great. They need to get a guy at receiver. If it's Travis Hunter, that's great. But you got to realize we have a whole draft rather than just the number 4 spot in the NFL draft. So you could draft a guy later on, but I just want to put that out there. They're going to need more than just a cornerback in Travis Hunter. So let's
But you
keep
know
going.
what, you want to know something? With Drake May, he's going to need weapons on that offensive side, and we
He
got to
needs it.
take that into consideration. He was drafted what, third overall, second or third overall.
Third.
You got to give this guy a fighting opportunity. You got to put the tools in his belt so he can be successful in the NFL. The only way he's going to be successful in the NFL is if you draft the right people around him, put the right offense around him, put the right offensive linemen, and just intangibles with him for him to be successful.
And we'll see if Travis Hunter becomes a weapon for Drake May. But until then, let's keep going, Nate. Now, this isn't the easiest pick for me, but it's straightforward in my opinion. The Jacksonville Jaguars are at number 5. And if you look at their depth chart, there's a really big gap in that secondary. They are in dire need of a defensive back. More specifically, a corner. Now, their cornerback 1 is Tyson Campbell, second-round pick out of Georgia in 2021, and he just hasn't developed the way they thought he would. He was part of those national championship teams, and that's just not what they thought he was going to be. So, you got to draft the best cornerback prospect you can. So, number 5, let's go Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan.
You know what? Now, I'm going to tell you something about this guy. He is a talent. He is a guy that you can plug in right now to go in there, compete, to play. When he played at Michigan, he just showed flashes of being just a hell of a competitor. And you got to appreciate that. You got to appreciate that. You got to love that. Just seeing how he competes and how he just goes out there and just does it. You got to love Will. You got to love Will Johnson. I personally feel that something crazy is going to happen, that he may be drafted even higher than number 5.
Then 5?
Yeah. You never know. See, one of the things that you love about the draft is that you never know about the trades.
Yeah, you never do. And it gets a lot wilder in the second half of the first round. Now, the first half, it gets a little bit more tame. You can kind of guess what's going on. In that second half, people jump up 2 spots.
Oh, yeah.
They jump up 1 spot. You don't know how to predict that. I have a couple of those predictions once we get in the whole first round mock draft. But right now, we're just doing the first 10 picks. And that's the only trade I had was at number 3.
And then some of these guys in some of the drafts, they get petty. And they will draft somebody that the opposing team wants, i.e. the Steelers and the Jets.
Well, the Jets have the number 7th pick. But before we get there, let's go to number 6, Nate. Now, we said the Giants trade back to 6. And if there are not 3 teams that need quarterbacks the most, that is Cam Ward, who we said is going to the Titans. Shedeur Sanders already went to the Raiders.
Yes.
And now we have a team who really needs a quarterback. And I got to thinking, man, y'all might hate me for this. And I really hate myself for this. But there is a guy that I'm looking at that I think the New York Giants will love. And they got to get him at number 6. They got to get him at number 6 because I don't know if he'll be there in the second round. I just don't know what other teams are looking at. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. He was very good. I took a selfie with him, as a matter of fact. He was very good, and I hate to say this because you know why I'm going to hate this. But you got to get your guy. Danny Dimes is gone. He's out of New York, and the quarterback play that you had was atrocious. So you got to get somebody who you know who can compete. And that guy to me, Nate, is Jackson Dart, quarterback out of Ole Miss. This might be a reach, but we said the same for Bo Nix. This is my Bo Nix in this year's draft class. You got to get your guy. It's early. You could even trade back farther back if you wanted to. But you got to get your guy while it's there. And I think Jackson Dart's the guy from New York. I know, Nate. I know. I had these same whimpers and faces to myself when I made this.
That's a huge stretch. But if you like, what makes you pick Jackson Dart?
Okay, now bias aside, he went to Ole Miss and I went to State, but he's not purely an Ole Miss player. I saw him at the Senior Bowl, and he gave me very much Drew Lock flashes, but better. And right now, the Giants have I'm talking about Drew Lock in the Giants' offensive scheme. I know you're going to look at me and this is crazy. Why am I comparing him to Drew Lock? Because that's the guy who was in New York. But I think he's going to be a lot better than Drew Lock. He just reminded me of the best. Now, Drew Lock had a really good game this season, and Jackson Dart reminded me of the best Drew Lock we saw this year in New York. But consistent. Consistently the best Drew Lock. And if Drew Lock was consistently good like he was his first or second game he played this season, he would have been really good for the rest of the year. But he wasn't consistent. Jackson Dart is going to be the guy that's consistent. So let's see what Jackson Dart does in the New York Giants uniform.
You're sure about that?
It took a lot for me to make this pick, and a lot of research and time went into looking into this. And I think Jackson Dart's the guy. Regardless of where you get him, you could get him later. I think he's going to New York.
But playing in that New York meet, I'm telling you, New York chews you up and spits you out. You have to have a different type of moxie to go down in New York and confidence. And just you have to have a different type of strength mentally to play in New York. Oh my God.
I know. And this pick could change. We're in like pre-mock draft right now. We're only doing the first 10 picks. This pick could change. But as of right now, and everything I've been seeing in New York, you eventually got to draft somebody to put in. Whether you get somebody like Jameis in free agency, that might happen. Famous Jameis. Or you draft somebody. Whoever you draft's got to be your guy. And it might be him right there. So let's keep going, Nate. You mentioned the Jets earlier. So let's take the Jets at number 7. And this pick is, I'm like 80 to 90% on this pick happening.
Okay.
So you look at it. The Jets at the 11th pick, they had the 10th last year. They traded back to the Vikings so the Vikings could trade up to get J.J. McCarthy. You draft the tackle Olu Fashanu. Okay? Had a little bit of an injury run, had older guys to really fortify that offensive line in Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses. Both those guys are out to free agency. So now Olu Fashanu's in, who you drafted at 11th, and you got to get another guy, either in free agency or a dude can fortify that tackle spot. And for me, Nate, I had to find the best tackle, pure tackle in the draft. And after careful consideration of who I think the best tackle is, it's going to be Will Campbell out of LSU.
Well, we got it. We got another consensus. I'm unanimous. I love this pick.
And if I just said Will Campbell, you wouldn't have any idea why I'm telling you. But they don't have any tackles but Olu Fashanu.
Oh, Fashanu.
You got to get a guy in there. Will Campbell. There's no better guy than Will Campbell. I'm not comparing him to Joe Alt, but this is the Joe Alt in this draft class. He probably won't be as good as Joe Alt, but this is him right here.
I like that. I like that pick. I like it.
So let's keep going. Now, oh my gosh, the Carolina Panthers pick. This is probably the one I spent the most time on.
Ooh.
You traded your superstar, your best player on your entire team, Brian Burns, for a bag of Lay's potato chips and not even a Diet Coke. You didn't even get a Diet Coke for him. You got one of those bug juices that you used to get when you were a kid. You know them bug juices I'm talking about? you
Yeah.
get from the gas station? If y'all know what I'm talking about, that's what you got for him. One of them little bug juices in a bag of Lay's potato chips. Because now you do not have a guy like Brian Burns in Carolina. You have to get that back. And to me, you have to get the best player available defensively. And it's probably easy for you. You're like, okay, well, they're going to get maybe middle linebacker Jalen Walker out of Georgia, or maybe the other Walker. I mean, the other Georgia player, Mikael Williams. They're going to get either one of the Georgia players because those are the ones that find the most success in the NFL. These Georgia, I mean, we had a whole Georgia front just win the Super Bowl. So I wish Robbie was watching, but that's the guy that you have to pick, right? And then I got to looking. Is a Georgia guy really the best fit here? Because you either pick a middle linebacker who could possibly be an edge in Jalen Walker, or you pick a pure edge in Mikael Williams. And to me, I don't think that's Carolina's guy. And this could be another big reach. Like I said, I took a lot of time with this pick. You look at the defensive scheme in Carolina. You run a 3-down lineman set, really a 3-4 in Carolina, and Georgia's not used to that. They're used to running 4-3s where you have a lot of dogs coming at you at once. Well, then you get to Carolina, you got to run a 3-4. How is that going to translate? How is a Georgia 4-3 scheme going to translate to a Carolina Panthers 3-4 scheme? And I got to thinking. There's a guy on this draft board. Now, this team does play a lot of 4-down linemen, but they love to mix up with the 3-down linemen sometimes. And he went to the University of South Carolina. And there just so happens to be another Gamecock on this Carolina roster, Xavier Legette, that they did draft in the first round. So let's go 2 for 2 with South Carolina players. And let's go at number 8, Nick Scorton, edge at a Texas A&M.
I like that. I actually like that.
It took a lot of time.
He's a quality player. He's a quality player, though. Really quality player. He can shore up that team. I would thought you would go more maybe offensive line-ish or whatnot, but Will Campbell actually went the pick before him and whatnot. So he's not going to drop down that far. But I like this pick. I really like this pick. I mean, Carolina's has their I want to say prematurely, but they have their franchise quarterback because the way their quarterback came that second half of the season after being benched, he just played amazing. And I think his eyes have woken up, and his body has woken up to the NFL game.
And I don't know if you draft O-line here, Nate. I think you absolutely have to draft a defensive player, and it really has to be an edge. Yeah. Now, people are saying Jalen Walker could be an edge. Why would you change somebody that he played a great middle linebacker last year? I mean, he won the what's the middle linebacker award in college? Man, these things keep slipping my mind. You know what I'm talking about. Can't believe these things are slipping my mind. I should know. Butkus, thank you. The Butkus Award. He won it. And now you're looking at Mikael Williams like, okay, this is the edge, but maybe he doesn't fit that defensive scheme. This absolutely has to be an edge. Whether or not it's Nick Scorton, they could very well draft Mikael Williams. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. But I like Nick Scorton here, and that's the guy I think's going to Carolina. So let's keep going, Nate. Now, if there was a pick you probably were anticipating the most, it might be at number 9. Because at number 9, when the Saints go marching in, when the Saints go marching in, I want to be in that number when the Saints go marching in. Number 9, Nate. The Saints have a top 10 pick. And there's a lot this team needs.
Don't mess up.
This team needs. And to me, I wanted Jared Verse last year. And he became so good. I wish we would have freaking got him. But I was advocating for Jared Verse, and we missed him. This year, I still want an edge. Because I want Cameron Jordan's old self to hang up the boots. As good as he's been to New Orleans, I just want him to hang up the boots. I really want an edge. but I got to think how the New Orleans Saints think. For me, you got a lot to consider here. You could say, okay, well, you got a bunch of old heads playing edge for you. But you also could look at it. Chris Olave, several concussions this season, played barely any football, is really close on the verge of retiring due to these concussions this year. As young as he is, it's sad to say. And you had Dante Pettis play at wide receiver 1 for 1-year games this year, had 9 targets with only 1 catch. I think it was against the Packers. You can't have that happen. And the only way to fix that from happening again, although you could get an edge here, and it might be really nice, the only way you can fix this offensive debacle and really have someone like Spencer Rattler shine with an offensive head coach you just hired, you got to get the best pure wide receiver in this draft class, and that's Ted McMillan out of Arizona. That's who the Saints drafted. T-Mac out of Arizona. Yes.
Hey, yeah, give UA, bear down. I like the pick. And then on top of that, let me ask you this. So you wait till next year to draft a quarterback?
Yes, absolutely. Unless Kellen Moore sees a guy he really, really likes, which I doubt it. Maybe a Kyle McCord or something. But you have to use these draft picks. The New Orleans Saints. Listen to me, Mickey Loomis. You have to use these draft picks with the utmost efficiency. You have to pull back to that 2017 draft class you had that was so fire and hit on almost every single pick here because you have so many needs and holes in your roster that you created, Mickey Loomis. And the only way to fill them up is by hitting on this draft. And it starts by drafting Ted McMillan at number 9. So let's keep going, Nate. Number 10, the last pick for our little mini mock draft we have today before we play a little Skip and Shannon. The Chicago Bears at number 10. And I got to thinking.
You better do it right for Bruce get mad.
You have to. And I think Bruce will agree with me here. You have to build around Caleb Williams. That's the only option you have here. Your defense was a little bit lackluster than it was the second half of the 2023 season. And you weren't the top 5 defense you thought you were going to be going into the 2024 season. But there's always chance to grab a defensive player. But at number 10, the guy you have to get. Now, your O-line wasn't terrible, but it's not where you want to be with somebody like Caleb Williams. For Caleb Williams to shine, like all these Bear fans thinks he will, and the way that they think he's going to, you have to get a guy that can protect him. And that starts with O-line. Now, at number 10, I don't have him being a tackle or guard, but I got the best available pure lineman, in my opinion, who won the best lineman this year in college football. And that's Kelvin Banks Jr., guard and tackle out of Texas. Now, I have guard on there. He's a tackle, but I have guard on there because you can put him at guard, and they're going to utilize him the way they want to. Now, this is a really young O-line for the Chicago Bears, but you keep getting younger when you keep drafting studs like Kelvin Banks.
I like it.
So, Nate, that's going to end it off for the picks. I'm going to put a ticker down for every single pick we just had right there. Is there anything you would like to say or go over before we play a little bit of Skip and Shannon?
Nah, you did your thing. You really did your thing.
Okay.
You really did your thing. Okay, I like it.
You know I don't skimp out on the research. I'm a journalist at heart. That's what I'm going to school for. And if I skimp out on research in my journalism, that means I'm going to get a boo-ba-doo-doo grade in return. And hopefully, y'all don't view these draft picks as boo-ba-doo-doo and give them boo-ba-doo-doo grades. Like I said earlier, if you agree with them, if you disagree with them, that's fine. Tell me in the comments. what you think, who you think your team's going to draft. Just don't simply dislike the video. I hate seeing those dislikes because y'all disagree with me. I'm not perfect, and neither are most draft analysts that are getting paid to do this. A lot of times they make some terrible takes. Like Dan Orlovsky and Colin Coward and even the most trusted draft analyst, Mel Kiper. None of them are perfect. But I do get a lot of things right. If you watch last year, a lot of them were right. A lot of people went where they were supposed to, per the breakdown mock draft. But that's going to conclude our first 10 picks of the 2025 NFL Draft. Please leave a comment below if you agree, disagree, or you're not sure. But I'd love to hear from you guys, and I'd love to chat with you beneath the video.